I'm Emma Albright, and this is Paris Calling. Today, Francesco Zizola, Rome, Italy.
Però diciamo che Roma...
Yes, I've lived in Rome, and I'm still in Rome. I've had periods in other cities, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in Salvador de Bahia. I had a stint in Paris, in New York. I lived in Berlin, in Naples. But I can say that Rome has always been the city I've returned to, always by choice, and not once have I ever regretted coming back.
Ogni volta.
When we caught up with him on a recent afternoon, Francesco Zizola was indeed back in the Eternal City, talking to us from his studio in Rome's Garbatella neighborhood. The renowned Italian photographer had just returned from the southeastern region of Puglia, where a new solo show of his recent work is on. Zizola also has a new book out, Diaries, a retrospective on some of his most iconic images in 40 years crisscrossing the planet, always in search of the next international trouble spot that might land his work on a magazine cover. But it may be the smaller stories, the most anonymous of his protagonists, a school playground in Uzbekistan, aging Sardinian fishermen, that define an approach to documentary photography that is equal parts gritty and poetic. We asked Zizola if he recalled what first sent him on the road to a life making photographs. The origin story connects back to his father, a prominent Italian journalist and expert on Vatican affairs. And the firstborn son felt a similar calling to be a storyteller, to reveal information, bear witness, but in a different way.
Mi sono appassionato da giovane, diciamo, alla fotografia.
I became interested in photography when I understood that it was a language, a technical tool that was capable of telling a story, of showing something. And I felt it could be much more immediate and powerful than what could be created with words. At least for me, I was able to express myself much better using images than words.
But that first required learning the technical skills and, above all, working. In his late teens and early 20s, Zizola found jobs wherever he could, in advertising and fashion, professional catalogs.
Avere il controllo della grammatica.
Having control of the grammar, of the technical grammar had to come first before I could express myself. So that first period where I was moving into photography, I did a bit of everything. Wherever there were opportunities, it was the early 1980s. And above all, it allowed me to earn a living and free myself from my parents.
But quickly, photo editors from Italian newspapers, and eventually the world's top magazines, would come calling.
Qualcuno poi ha notato le mie foto, ha iniziato
Some people started to notice my photographs, and that's when I first began my first newspaper assignments. I learned that there were rules for working in newspapers. There was a responsibility. In the late 80s, editors were increasingly hungry for more in-depth analysis, for less superficial images, for significant images, for realities that were not easily seen represented on TV news. We are talking about an era in which satellite technology had not allowed for the development of information that would come with live television, information that circulated rapidly from all over the world, and arrived in homes almost in real time.
da tutto il mondo e arrivavano nelle case quasi in tempo reale.
Much of our recent history has passed before Zizola's lens, from the fall of the Berlin Wall and the attempted Soviet coup in Moscow in 1991 to the war in Iraq and the tragedy of would-be dying migrants in the Mediterranean. He was one of the first contemporary photographers to ever make it inside North Korea and traveled to Libya to photograph Muammar Gaddafi. And yes, the popes and cardinals back in his native Rome. But what ultimately set his body of work apart were long-term projects, very long-term, notably Born Somewhere, where he spent more than a decade across 27 countries documenting the daily lives of children, often those living amid war and poverty. As committed as he's always remained to his journalistic responsibility, Zizola has never believed in objectivity as a photographer.
Fotografia, fotographos.
Is the synonym, it is the acronym, it is literally the union of two words, writing of light. But obviously a camera is a technological machine that allows you to select which light to use to make this writing. To write, and this selection involves a point of view. Therefore, reading a photograph in relation to the reality it wants to tell, to show, also means reading the author, knowing how to read the motivations, the deep motivations, the intentions, knowing how to understand how much responsibility the author places in making this reality evident. This partial vision is declared through the image. This is a danger, it is an ambiguity. It is a very great danger when reading journalistic photographs, because they are photographs that tell, they are in relation to reality. Because if we entrust photography with this step of making reality visible in its entirety, there we are as spectators of the photograph. We are making a mistake, because this is not possible. A photograph maintains a degree of ambiguity and maintains a very strong degree of partiality, which is that of the author's vision. In journalistic photography, therefore in purely journalistic photography, something is very important that has nothing to do with the image, but to do with the word. To resolve all ambiguities, the word completes the visual information. That's the caption, which should be on every news photo.
E quindi la famosa didascalia.
With the arrival of the internet and smartphones, that once privileged relationship between a news photograph and its caption has largely been supplanted by an endless feed of images. Estimates are that more than 5 billion photographs are now produced every day, often circulated online along with unidentified past images, manipulated images, and now, increasingly, fake images produced by artificial intelligence. Though some celebrate the way technology has opened up the possibility to all to document the world, Zizola sees something sinister at play.
A mancare veramente, io lavoravo
I worked for the mass media. Now the mass media have been replaced by the internet, which gives us that very ambiguous image of information that is apparently free, where everyone can express themselves and receive information. In reality, it is even more controlled and controllable. And indeed, it is precisely in this characteristic of being controlled and controllable that lies the absolute danger of information that we have now understood isn't free at all. We have been transformed from news users into subjects of study for algorithms, and therefore as consumers, pure consumers. What we complained about in the 90s, early 2000s, was that newspapers were increasingly filled with advertising pages, that articles and investigations became secondary to the advertising content. Now we have an information reality that is designed to study us and our characteristics as consumers. And everything is shaped in service to that objective.
The internet has, of course, also taken its toll on the economics of news and journalism. Photojournalism has been hit especially hard. Seeing the shift coming, Zizola has turned his focus almost exclusively to long-term projects. And increasingly his works are circulating on the fine art market. Though he doesn't shy away from utilizing new technologies, he likes to place his current work in dialogue, and at times, even in contrast to the digital imperatives.
Io scatto anche.
I also shoot, I create images digitally too, not only on film, but I like to define my photography as a kind of photography 1.0. That is a photography that shows what passes through that lens with very little undeclared manipulation. My manipulation is often the subtraction of colors. My photographs are in black and white, and it is a declaration of evident manipulation. A black and white image does not exist in reality. We see in color, so my black and white photography is already a declaration not only of manipulation, but it is a declaration of intent. This is an image that shows my point of view, my thoughts on that reality. Then I add to this first consideration a second consideration, which is that of trying to use photography to counteract this trend, which is increasingly evident and derives after not even 180 years of history of photography, which sees photography relegated to impulses of light, which correspond to emotional impulses. We are digitizing more and more. We scroll through images with our fingers. We scroll them on these tablets, on these luminous screens, sensitive to our touch. We scroll through images with our fingers. Nothing holds us back. The image no longer tells stories except of quick impulses, which are obviously the boundless productions of images which we witness today, and which favor this type of output. I have set for myself the goal of using photography to instead bring the attention of the mind of the people who are looking at it. And I create them by trying to create a kind of haiku, a visual paradox in which I show a piece of reality, a fragment of reality. But I also try to keep you from understanding what reality it is. And by doing so, I hope to create the question rather than offering an answer with my images. The question that my photography should raise is, what am I seeing? There is something that intrigues me, but I can't capture it immediately. This extra fraction of a second, this step allows me to break this velocity of our time. Or at least this is my goal, to break the speed of reading and try to go a little further with my thoughts.
These photographic haikus can be seen in what is his current long-term project, a worldwide exploration of the environmental destruction that is enveloping the planet, which is told in 4 chapters: water, air, fire, and earth. The work is made up of striking trompe-l'œil images that indeed invite the viewer to read the caption to find out that what looks like a constellation in the night sky is actually a vast network of artisanal fishing nets shot from a drone. Or what could either be a satellite image of an island floating in the sea, or perhaps a dinosaur fossil, is a close-up photo of a small shard of the Arctic's melting ice caps. Zizola has called the project hubris, using the Greek pronunciation hubris.
Che è un termine inventato dai greci antichi.
It is a term invented by the ancient Greeks, and with which the ancient Greeks defined that tendency of human beings to not know how to recognize their own limits. They saw how human beings became arrogant and no longer knew how to contain themselves. And so they trampled on a territory that the ancient Greeks said was not their own. It was that of the gods. And the gods, seeing men trampling on their territory, became angry and hurled every misfortune upon the community of men: wars, calamities, earthquakes, plagues, poverty, and so on. And this naturally is what we see happening today.
Sai, un amico che è morto.
A friend who died recently once said to me that to be able to respond to this great coercion that we are all facing by this pervasive system of the algorithm, it is necessary to remain aware, curious, active beings with thoughts of our own. And more specifically, it will be necessary to create a network, and here he specified a network not like that of the internet, the digital web that becomes a spider's net created by the capitalist system, where we are all attached to this network, and then the spider comes and eats us whenever it wants. No, the network my friend was talking about is a network between us, between human beings, between concrete biological entities, to rediscover the ability to create relationships, to enter into realities, recognize authenticity and know how to work with it, know how to get our hands dirty in these realities. It is tiring, but it is necessary. And then he added that it is also necessary to break balls, to know how to say no.
Poi aggiungeva, è necessario rompere i coglioni, cioè saper dire no.
The place that Zizola has always called home is also in many ways a city that belongs to the world. It continues to stand at the crossroads of continents and hosts the seat of the Universal Catholic Church. It also absorbs flocks of tourists to take in the ruins of the past, dine on the tastiest of cuisines, and perhaps steal a glance of the Supreme Pontiff. But Rome also, very much, belongs to the Romans, a kind of sprawling village where everyone seems to know everyone else, with a code of gestures and glances, humor and customs that are not meant for outsiders. Zizola grew up in a neighborhood in northern Rome that, like others on the city's periphery, popped up in the 1950s and 60s to house the expanding middle class. As soon as he could, the aspiring photographer fled the family home to live in other, more central neighborhoods. He lived for several years in the Trastevere neighborhood along the Tiber River, before moving to his current home in Garbatella. He lived for several years in the bustling Esculino neighborhood, near the Termini train station.
Sono andato in un altro quartiere.
I went to another neighborhood which still maintained some of its originality, also thanks to a huge multi-ethnic market in Piazza Vittorio, which allowed that neighborhood to still represent a point of authentic mixing between different realities. Rome, the empire. The empire was about expansion, the inclusion of different races and ethnic groups. That neighborhood still gave back that reality. Rome, being a large metropolis with millions of inhabitants, is a complex and exhausting city to live in, sometimes very exhausting, but it has this characteristic that I consider unique, and that it makes it worth living here. It is a city that always carries with it, not like a museum that exhibits something that has long since died, and you see there a beautiful frame to admire it, but it always carries with it. In its daily life, in its vital being, in its heartbeat of a city, of a metropolis, it carries with it 3,000 years of history, and it is not a slogan. If you live it deeply enough, you understand there is a soul that this city holds on to, a soul that is also difficult to live with, that can be contradictory, even violent at times, but it is a soul that is alive, that is authentic. It's a city that, if you know how to face it and make choices, it always gives you this authenticity.
Returning to his preoccupations with the way the algorithms have come to dominate modern society, with the way our hubris is pushing the planet toward what may be irreversible damage, we asked if Rome's long history of transformations and survival offers some hope.
Bella domanda, magari.
Good question, maybe. But the problem is that the Silicon Valley algorithm is an algorithm. We can say it's the algorithm of our capitalist system. It has taken over the world, all of us, beyond cultures, histories, and is transforming our lives, individual lives, and the entire societies in which we live. So it's hard to answer your question without foreseeing a different level of awareness on the part of people of what is happening. That will be necessary, and it will probably be the consequence of more of the disasters that we are witnessing and that they want to try to pass off as normality. But I want to believe that if Rome has survived 2,500 years of history, it will probably survive this too. I just don't know with what great wounds, with what great future we can expect it to emerge. It is hard to say.
Con quali grandi ferite, con quali grandi futuri. Non lo so.
Paris Calling is a World Crunch podcast. Post-production is done by Jacob Shropshire. Interview and editing is by Jeff Israeli. Creative assistance is by Rebecca Bontheus and Gabrielle Nadler. And narration is by me, Emma Albright. Credit to McFuss20 on Freesound and Alban Go on Pixabay for music used in this production. Voice matching software was used in the creation of English language audio of Francesco Zizola. With each episode of Paris Calling, we discover someone else somewhere else. Support us with likes, shares, and ratings on your favorite platforms.